won't sing.
I thought you were going to sing.
I won't sing.
You're gonna
Okay,
spear
folks,
everyone.
we have, what?
Spear everyone.
Yeah. We have some questions that I have to address concerning Kubota, or Kubotas. Okay? So, the first question, I'm going to try to do this all in one video, because it's kind of hard to explain and show you online, as opposed to showing you in a video. So, the first one is I get a lot of people asking me how I keep the tractors clean. Well, I can assure you the tractor has been very dirty. It's been so dirty at times you couldn't even see the color of it. We try not to show you those videos.
Yeah, that's right.
But it does require cleaning, and there is a way to clean them. So what I use is this pressure washer right here. We have a much larger pressure washer, but I don't use that pressure washer because the other pressure washer with a white tip on it, a 0 degree tip, can have, or a 40 degree tip, no hang on, it's not the white tip I use. There's one that comes in straight, the red one, 0 degree. It can actually cut a piece of 2x4 in two.
Wow.
So you don't want to be using that. I usually use the white one, which is a 40 degree, when I'm using the pressure washer. But there's things that you should do and you should be aware of before you actually start this thing up. Number one, everything has vents. Here's the vents for the rear differential in your transmission. You should avoid that at all costs, because when you apply pressure to that, it's possible that you could get water in your transmission fluid, which is your hydraulic fluid, which means that if you get enough of it in there, you're going to totally ruin your day, and your tractor's not going to like you for it, and things aren't going to work as planned. So you avoid this area here. Unless you can find some way of covering it up, well, that's up to you. What you should do before you start to pressure wash anything is you should get an under your tractor with the park brake applied and it's not running and it's on level ground, and just have a look and see what's, in other words, get familiar with your tractor. Get in under it and see where all the electrical connections are and where all the modules are. Like in this 5740, there's a module way in here, and that's a module that you should avoid getting wet. Although they do have like weather pack plugs and stuff on them, when you start applying pressure to water, it can be introduced into the connector, and that's going to cause some ill feelings between you and your tractor. If you have a stack, now of course I have a 5740 that don't normally come with a stack. We have a stack on this one. And what I usually do with the stack, although when I designed it, I made allowances for water when it got in. There's actually a drain and a collector down at the bottom, and it will run out. But I still, in the event of washing it, I usually take a rubber glove and put out over the exhaust stack.
Yes. I've seen you do that.
Yes, yeah. Up here is a cabin filter. So you want to avoid spraying water directly up into here, because just above this here is the actual element. If you get that wet, well, you could end up with an inefficient heating system or cooling system. You could also end up with mildew on the cartridge, and you could also end up with a bad odor in the cab over a period of time.
Oh.
Yeah, so you want to avoid that. When it comes to the engine, this is the big one. People, when you're going to pressure wash your engine, and of course the tractor itself, you don't need to have your wand close to the tractor like that, because it will lift the paint off. It will do it, and it will cause damage. Any decals, they can be blown off as well. There are things that you shouldn't use, and that's the the nozzle that's on here. This is an oscillating nozzle. And when you turn on your pressure washer and that starts, it goes, not the washer itself, but there's a ball bearing up in here. And I'm telling you, it comes out in a swirl.
Spirally.
And I'm telling you, like, it is brutal how
Not
much
happy.
damage that can do.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's so, you don't use this at all, okay? I would rather you didn't. It's up to yourself what you do. You can take a grinder to it if you want to, but
Well, yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
want to damage. I
But-
guess that one's great for floors or something like
that's
that.
what it's
yeah.
on there for
Is it?
now,
Yeah.
for floors, yeah. Or if I was going to weld something on the chassis of a dump truck,
Oh, yes.
you know, where it had rust and stuff on it, that would be my nozzle of choice. Also, in the engine compartment, you don't want to use any detergents. Now, that's a general detergent in there now. Some people just buy one detergent, like a degreaser. And the problem with using degreasers and stuff is pressure washer in your engine compartment, you're going to get some water down in your alternator, around your, your stator, your field coils, whatever, your rotor inside. And detergents are made for cutting grease and for cutting oils and keeping stuff clean, but they're also known to cause deterioration of the metals. So in other words, an untreated metal like a copper or a stainless or a bare steel, it can actually spot. It can actually cause damage to them surfaces, including bearings. So you could be cleaning up your tractor, washing your engine, using the wrong detergent or detergent at all, and you could end up causing damage to your bearings. Also, when you're cleaning up your bearings, like in a case like this, come over here, Kathy. Like in a case like that, people say, I'm going to take some pressure washer, and I'm going to take my pressure washer with some grease, and I'm going to clean up this area here. Well, down in here, there's a seal.
Oh.
And those pressure washers can damage a seal.
Yeah.
So, you treat it with a lot of respect. You can use, I've seen people use super clean and other solvents like that and cleaning agents like that, but it also tarnishes the paint. So,
Wow. That's a lot to know.
well, sometimes you're better off dealing with the dirt than you are dealing with the solution of trying to clean it
Yeah.
off. And even cleaning off the FEL, your loader, where there's so many pins and bushings and grease nipples and stuff, you end up taking a pressure washer and you end up trying to pressure wash all the grease, and then when it's all done, yeah, it's clean, and you look up at your glass, guess where grease went?
Oh, no.
Don't ask me how I know.
Okay, I won't.
Okay? That one is from experience.
Well, there you go. That's nothing wrong with experience.
Yeah, there's not much up in the front that you can cause damage to, other than the fact that you have hydraulic hoses. I would assume that most people have tractors will have sense enough to know that you shouldn't be putting your pressure washer directly on your hydraulic hoses or your cylinders, your hoist cylinders or your tilt cylinders, because the seals are up here, So, those are things that you should look out to. Some parts of the tractor are plastic, such as that. If you use too much pressure, you'll blow a hole through it. Now, I don't know about that, but I suspect you could, because that's our second top. The top that came with the tractor had a split in the seam, and I'm going to tell you something, folks, there's not a lot up there. It's just basically a cover to cover over all the electronics and the air conditioning system and stuff that's up there. So, you have to use a few smarts. So, the don'ts is, don't use detergents. That's your safest bet. Don't get too close to electronic modules, to harnesses, to connectors. Try to avoid that, because those things, even if they are dirty, it don't really have much of an effect on them. The solution to trying to clean it off is probably worse than the dirt itself. Cover over your vents, get it under your machine, look to see where all the vents are too. If there's vents there, you might want to try to cover them over or to avoid that area. You don't want to introduce moisture or liquids into the lubrication system. And you don't want to wet down your engine too much. People say, well, it don't matter if your tractor is clean or dirty. It really do. If it's filthy, like if all the back of that was caked in mud, the chances of that running hotter in normal operating conditions is going to be a lot greater than if it was clean. When it's clean, it runs cooler. So you still should keep it clean, but you got to be smart about cleaning it. What else? That's about it for the washing. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of taking your time and thinking about the machine itself. Now, anybody who has a tractor, we'll move on to something else now, because one situation can introduce another situation. All of these lights, anybody who has a tractor, it don't matter what year, it don't matter what brand, it don't matter how old, it don't matter how new. As a matter of fact, if you do this when it's new, you're going to eliminate a lot of issues. And what I usually do whenever I get a new tractor is I usually remove all the bulbs and I put dielectric grease in the sockets and on the bulbs. And what this does is this eliminates moisture from getting into the sockets and the bulbs. This is a product that I've been using for years and years and years. Dow Corning Compound. You see me use it all the time.
All the time.
And I'm telling you folks, this is the only thing I don't use this on.
It's a regular staple here.
The only thing I don't use this on is my cornflakes. And I don't know, but I should try it.
Don't put it on your cornflakes.
Good stuff. I get this from a place in the city that sells bearings and electrical items and stuff, but you can't get it. You know, I don't know if you can get it like at Napa or anywhere like that. I haven't seen it, but this is the brand name that I've stuck with, and I really like it. It's also good for other things too. If you're putting a piece of rubber on a nipple, say for instance I was putting this on over this, and this was much tighter than that, I'd put a little bit of that stuff on and just push it on. It really works well. It's got many uses, but when I bought this new, I did all the bulbs. They've all been since changed over to LED, but I still put dielectric grease on each bulb, and I haven't had a problem. The 4240 that we bought, I waited a year before I did it, and when I pulled the bulbs out, I actually had trouble getting one bulb out and cracked it off. I had to clean out the socket. That's how rusty in 1 year. And these things aren't out in the weather, so it just goes to show. So that's a little tech tip that you can use. Here's another one that a fellow just asked me just this morning on YouTube. He said, Paul, when you're finished using your snowblower and your tractor, do you put it in the hot shop and let it all melt off? Or do you just go and park it? Well, that depends on the forecast.
True.
Because if I'm out snow clearing and the next day it calls for rain, it goes down in the shelter and it's put in and it'll melt on its own. This the other day, however, when it came in, this was buried in snow. So I don't drop my my snowblower on the floor. Furnace is right there. I turn it on for 5 or 10 minutes and eventually all the snow just falls off and it goes down the drain. That being said, some mornings I have to go out, and before I go out I come back and I look, and the heat's not on here all night, and when I look I still have a lot of snow in the drum. So before I start it, before I do anything, I come over here, you might have to get here and see this, Kathy, and I put my hind leg in there and I make sure that this will rotate. Because I have seen these, not so much this one, but other ones, where there's a little drain hole in here, and that plugged, and I've seen water accumulate after the job was done, after the machine was used. That build up with water, freeze overnight, guy comes out the next morning, he's got himself a real problem.
Big time.
Even if the ice do break, it comes out through here, and God forbid it's pointing at somebody or pointing at the house or pointing at your vehicle, you're going to have a bad morning, either way. And if nothing happens to anything outside, you could possibly do damage here. So, in essence, the right thing to do is when you're finished using your tractor, you should at least make sure the impeller here is clear of all debris, snow, ice, whatever, before you park it. Well, what I usually do is when I'm outside and I am using the snow blower, before I bring it into shop, I'll go out when all the snow clearing is done and I'll drop this down on the ground a couple of times with the impeller, with the PTO engaged, and that way if there's any snow it will blow out. You'll get 90% of it out. When you come in here you might have to just poke a little bit of it out and you're done. So that should solve that problem. The other last tip, last but not least, is one that I ran into yesterday with a customer of ours. And great operator, but not a very experienced one. And he did something that kind of spooked me, and I had to bring it to his attention. You've seen the tractor here before if you watched our videos. It's a 60 series tractor with a new sander in the back and a big snow blower on the front. And sometimes when he's traveling around, he's traveling in two-wheel drive, not in four-wheel drive. And that's fine. That's pretty good. The only thing is that he had to go up to this certain parking lot that had a big hill. So by the time he got up there and he did the snow clearing with this tractor, coming down over the hill, he ran into a bit of a problem. And the problem was he probably couldn't stop very well. Now, why couldn't he stop very well? Well, I'll tell you why he couldn't stop very well. There's no brakes on the front of a tractor, not these tractors. There's no brakes, none whatsoever. So what happened was, by the time he was finished up on top of the hill on the parking lot, his sander had no more salt left in it. But the snowblower was still on the front. So she became light on the arse end. So he's coming down over the hill. You have all this weight up front, very little weight back. He didn't know it, but there's very little weight on the back wheels. So coming down over the hill, he felt that she was speeding up on him. Why? Because they weren't on the ground. So how do you prevent that? You put it in four-wheel drive, and even if these are off the ground and you apply the brake, it's going to follow up through the drive line and slow the front wheels down where the weight is to. So anytime you have a tractor and you're up on a hill, and it's whether it's summer or winter, it can still become light in the back. I always travel down over a steep hill in four-wheel drive. That, my friend, can keep you alive.
Wow, I think that's the best tip of them all.
Well, it can certainly save you from going out of control. It's just understanding how these things work. You know, they have two brakes, one on each wheel. In this case, it's a HST, so it's transmission is pretty well doing all of it. But you can still control the brakes individually with this particular model because it does have a brake on it, but it has no front brakes. So if it comes up in the back and you're going down over hills, not in four-wheel drive, she's freewheeling. And only God knows where you're going to stop and how you're going to stop and if you're going to be on the cab or on her wheels. With that, that's all I can say because dear it is and it can't be no tizzer. Hey?
It is what it is, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So now at the end of the video, you're going to see 4 business cards. They will be these. And these represent some great people that work at Newfoundland Kubota Limited. And if you have any questions or any concerns, or if you have any questions on purchasing a machine, look one of these people up and I'm sure they'll help you. Just give them a call, tell them Paul sent you and Kathy sent you, and they'll know what it's all about. With that, we're going to call this a take, I guess, eh?
Yep.
And we'll get this up later on. It is quite early in the morning yet. We'll get it up later on, probably this evening. And we'll be back before Christmas to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. But just in case you missed the next video, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. We appreciate you watching us, taking the time to to watch us, and I hope you learn something from it. Even if it is, well, I learned I should never watch you again.
Well, you still learn something.
Still learning something.
Yeah, that's right.
And with that, we'll say goodbye. So have a look at the business cards at the end, and especially, well, for people in Newfoundland anyway. And of course, some of the people that's on these business cards are on the eastern part of Newfoundland. The western part has another dealership by this company. They have their own people. I don't know these people, and I'm sure they're good as well, and they'll help you with any questions you have with your Kubota or any concerns. So take care, folks. Drive safe. It's kind of a crazy time of the year. People are impatient, and people are going out of their minds trying to get from point A to point B, and there's a lot of pressure on everybody. So avoid all conflict and just say, well, people are just slightly insane during these holidays. That's how I handle it. And we'll see you in the next video. You guys take care. God bless.